Hey all, welcome to Sasquatch in the Mist. I am Shane Corson, and before I get started, I have to give a big shout out to my sponsor, which is, of course, nature. uh, get outside and enjoy it. I thoroughly do, and nature is a great sponsor. The woods, the forests, the mountains, the rivers, the lakes, the coasts to enjoy. And I rather come out here, even on my worst day, than I'd rather come out here and enjoy it than engage in all the turmoil, arguments going on in the world. There's just so much to life that is at our fingertips to enjoy. So, um, you know, Sasquatch aside, it's just great to be in the woods. It's great to explore. It's great to put feet where nobody's stepped before. And you just never know. Honestly, you just never know what you're going to come across. I often say, take a line from Forrest Gump, the forest and the woods are like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And so it's just a great place to spend your time, to find peace, to find enjoyment, and experience nature. I'm currently out here in what we call our nest study area. I'm actually on the outskirts of our main core area. We wait this year, we're waiting till mid March before we head into our study area. We have some long term audio units running right now that's recording everything out here. And we'll get back out there in a little while and service those audio units and see what's going on out here. The one thing I love about audio is that it's the least intrusive thing you can do out here. And so we kind of let the audio do its thing. We go in and review that audio, get a game plan, see what's going on, see what the known animals are doing, and we look to see if there's anything ambiguous, strange, odd, if our target subjects, possibly Sasquatch, are in the area. And so today I just wanted to bring you kind of out here with me to kind of showcase the scenery. A little bit about the Olympic Project, which is the organization that I help co-run that gets out to these areas, both up here in the Olympics and in other parts of Washington and Oregon. So the Olympic Project is a Sasquatch research team. It's an organization of like-minded individuals, and I help co-run this organization, and I work with some amazing people, I'll tell you. Some really amazing people that do their due diligence in this research. We have academics such as wildlife biologists, archaeologists. We have a lot of laymen such as myself, guides, explorers, hikers, campers, both male and female. And we are all of the opinion that Sasquatch is a real thing. We do have a few skeptics in our group. It kind of keeps us grounded. But many of us in the Olympic Project have had either a sighting, an experience, an encounter, such as myself, and many of the individuals that haven't had a sighting or that experience that solidified Sasquatch for them have looked at the evidence provided, whether that's foot impressions, hair, the nests that we're currently studying, or something of that nature that kind of compelled them to look into this further. And they bring their expertise to the table. And so that's kind of what the Olymp Project is. We are a research organization, data driven. We collect as much data on areas that we traverse in. We don't ambulance chase. We kind of stick to a few core areas and get to know all the known animal life in that area, the seasons, the terrain. We are not out to prove Sasquatch exists per se. We're about collecting as much data so that if in that day Sasquatch is proven to exist, we can provide that data to the powers that be, academia. So that's kind of what we're about. This area here, I'm going to be doing a lot of videos in and about because it's, like I said before, our core area. We've been studying this area since the latter part of about 2015, May of 2015. And the reason we were drawn to this area was back in 2015. A timber surveyor was out in this general area marking a timber line. They were planning on logging this area. And this timber surveyor, up until that point, for 27 years, this individual was out here doing what he does. And he was up on this finger that came off a ridge line. So if you imagine your knuckles as the ridge, you have these fingers or plateaus that come off of this area, and he was going through these deep ravines and back onto these plateaus or fingers coming off this ridge line. And he'd been going up and down, marking a line that was about 100 yards from a seasonal salmon creek. You have to stay a certain distance from these creeks. And as he's going down and up onto these fingers, he came across at the very tip of one of these large ground nests, ranging in size from about 3 feet to over 8.5, almost 9 feet across, bathtub in shape, not circular, but more bathtub in shape, made out of nothing but evergreen huckleberry, over a foot in depth, very large limbs. And you can see back here, we got some, this is basically your huckleberry branch here. And so you had a lot of the larger branches or huckleberry boughs on the bottom and a lot of the thinner ones on top. And they were kind of formulated into like a nest, not intertwined, but formulated into this large ground nest. And this guy was blown away by it. I mean, he never, in his 27 years of being out in these areas and doing what he does for the company, he had never come across anything like this. And so what he did was he backed out of there. He got a little spooked out, and he got a hold of Derek Randalls, who is the founder of the Olympic Project. And the reason he got a hold of Derek Randalls by trade is a landscaper. 10 years prior to this, Derek had done some work for this timber surveyor. And this timber surveyor knew that Derek Randalls was not only a guide, an avid outdoorsman, a hunter, but also into Sasquatch. And so he thought maybe Derek Randalls had seen something like this before. And so Derek Randalls, the timber surveyor, one of our partners, James Millian, to DNR, Department of Natural Resources, and the owner of the property came out to look at these ground nests. And when they went out there, latter part of 2015, they were blown away. Every single one of them was absolutely blown away. Reason being, they had never seen anything like this. You know, these guys have seen bear beds, elk beds, you name it, they've seen it. These nests were formulated into like a kind of a pyramid shape. You had the large nests on the outskirts with a point nest facing the ravine. And they were just very strategically placed. And very large and fairly fresh. The evergreen was still, the leaves were still green. And so subsequently, after being kind of blown away and not knowing what they were looking at, the owner of the property gave the Olympic Project a key to the gate. Now these nests are 2.5 miles behind a lock gate and way off trail. You have to hike quite a ways to get to them. And so we got given a key. We got up to about 5 years to kind of study this area. They had other projects, the timber company had other projects going on. And so they weren't worried about logging this area. And so that's why we are here and why we're doing what we do, but in this area. To date, we have found 24 nests, the newest one being in 2020. And I will share that story another time. But we were going through for months looking for more nests and along these fingers that are coming off this ridgeline. And at that time, we found 23. Including two nests that were off the ground. All these nests were on the ground except for two in two different areas where there was a nest built into the huckleberry itself off the ground about 3 feet. And it looked like a practice nest. And Derek had done a lot of work on trying to figure out what these ground nests were and also the bush nests. Which were small and wouldn't hold any weight, but they were a mirror image of what was on the ground. And so after Derek had done a lot of research on nests in general, the closest thing he came across were pictures of gorilla nests. That was the closest thing that these nests up here in the Olympics resembled. And come to find out that gorillas teach their young, they build practice nests. We were really interested in this, and we did find, of course, 14-inch impressions in this area, good sized feet impressions. We found a number of hair, and we started putting audio out in this area, and we captured a lot of great audio. These nests were vacated probably months prior. We believe probably in the months of February or March is when they were built and occupied. And then subsequently and later on, they were vacated. So when they were discovered, they had been vacated for a couple months. That's our opinion. Now, when you get into this nest area or nest areas, you see complete devastation all around inside this area. I often refer to it as kind of like a house. You have a house with walls and whatnot. You can recognize that it's a house, but you don't know what's inside a house until you open the door and walk in. Well, that's kind of like the nest area. You have this wall of huckleberry. You can't see it from the sky because of the overhead growth of the tree canopy. You can't see it from afar because of the huckleberry, the wall of huckleberry. And it's not until you walk through that wall, that door of the huckleberry, and you get into this area where these nests are, at the very tip of these fingers, do you see the complete devastation of huckleberry boughs snapped off, broken off, twisted off from various heights, from a foot off the ground to over 9 feet, about 9 feet off the ground. Just the tips. All the huckleberry leaves in this area were plucked off. And we even found piles of huckleberry next to some of these nests. And it was just an amazing thing to behold, the devastation, and you would never see it until you walked through that door. Like I said before, you have this pyramid shape of nests. Larger nests on the outside and the smaller ones in the middle, almost like something is protecting smaller individuals. All these nests were pretty much made at the same time. It's not bear behavior. In fact, there were no claw marks, no teeth marks. We didn't come across any bear scat, which is common around bear beds. We do believe that there are quite possibly Sasquatch moving through here periodically. We do believe these nests are quite likely made by Sasquatch based on the hair and the foot impressions, the hand impressions we've discovered. As I kind of alluded to before, Todd Hale and I did discover a new nest in February tail end of February 2020, and walked in on something making a nest, and it took off before we could get a view of it, and it circled around behind us. We eventually got back up out of this area and waited to see if something would approach us. It never did, so we went back down to this area and discovered a gigantic pile of huckleberry boughs collected and being formulated into a nest. And we did find some hand impressions, some foot impressions, and more hair. And this hair, under a microscope, doesn't match any of the animals out here whatsoever. It is primate hair. It lacks a medulla. So if you think of the centerpiece of the hair as like a pencil, that centerpiece would be like the lead. It'd be lacking the lead, the centerpiece of the hair. It's not there. It doesn't match bear, elk, deer, you name it. But whatever's making these nests, it's very consistent. And I did a lot of homework on nests after the fact, because I never really thought about Sasquatch or making nests. Historically speaking, there's been nests found in California. There's been nests found in Oregon, Washington, Alaska, Montana, Idaho, British Columbia, Canada. They're almost always found by timber surveyors. Somebody in a timber company that's got a job to do. They go out to these nasty areas, because these aren't areas where you're going to go exploring or hiking. It's very thick, it's nasty, you're falling over, it's always wet, and it's just not what normal people would do, is go out to these areas. These timber company employees have a job to do, and typically they're the ones that come across these nests. In Robert Alley's book, Raincoast Sasquatch, there's a great picture of a nest that's very similar to the ones we have out here. This was the one in Robert Alley's book, was found in Alaska, made out of different material, but the same shape and same size. And I also found out that, and this is very interesting, I also found out that in 1967, if you're familiar with the Patterson-Gimlin film, where the Sasquatch is walking in this creek bed area, and Roger and Bob pull up on their horses, and Roger gets off his horse and kind of chases after this Sasquatch, this female Sasquatch with his camera. Well, lo and behold, there was a timber surveyor, a timber company employee out there in 1967, and he found a large ground nest above Scorpion Creek, which feeds into Bluff Creek, and Bluff Creek is where Patty was filmed. So in an adjacent area, stone's throw away, Scorpion Creek, there was a large ground nest found the same year. And so it got my wheels spinning. Here we have an example of a Sasquatch being filmed. And I do believe Patty's a real Sasquatch. It's not a hoax. But you have this Sasquatch filmed and then a nest found not that far away. And so that really got my wheels spinning. We don't think Sasquatch is making nests, if they are indeed making nests. We don't believe they're making them all the time. We believe they're being made for a season and for a purpose. And that could be a birthing scenario, a nursery scenario. And this is just hypothesizing. I will never say anything is absolute. I'm not that guy, and the Olymp Project's not that group. But hypothesizing, if these nests are being made by Sasquatch, then maybe they're for that sort of reason. And we also believe that they're being made at the end of February or mid-February till March, mid-March or so. There's a window there. And we believe they're being made possibly every 4 to 5 years in this area. And not necessarily on the same fingers or ridgeline. There's many fingers and ridge lines out here with seasonal salmon bearing creeks, which plays a huge role because in those months, you have a lot of salmon coming up these rivers to the point where you could walk across them. You know, think of a documentary you may have seen on Alaska, you know, where they have salmon coming up these rivers. They're chock full. So there's a lot of protein down there, a great food source. And historically speaking, with the Native Americans and the First Nation people, they talk about Sasquatch eating salmon, taking their salmon, and whatnot. So it is a fascinating scenario. And so we're out here collecting data, documenting, you know, finding tracks and recording audio every single night, 365 days a year. So I just wanted to bring you guys out here and showcase this area a little bit, but also bring you out here because this is where I'm going to be spending a lot of my time, exploring, hiking, sharing stuff, and I hope you find it entertaining. I hope maybe you get something out of it, and you know, we can kind of share this research and adventure together. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I have a blast doing this. I really do. I have so much fun being out here in the outdoors. And so hopefully through this channel, you'll get to open that box of chocolates with me and enjoy the things we come across, the things we see, and enjoy the scenery. It's just something you can't put a dollar sign on. You can't put a dollar sign on. I'm very blessed to be out here and enjoy it. You know, none of us are getting younger. There'll come a day when, you know, I won't be able to traverse these areas. I don't want to think about that because I'm going to enjoy it as much as I can right now. And in the process, hopefully, come across more tantalizing pieces of evidence, you know, adding those puzzle pieces to that puzzle. And I know there's a lot of great researchers out there, a lot of great organizations, a lot of great individuals, some of them well-known, some of them under the radar, that I have a lot of respect for. You know, for the last 10 or 12 years or so, people have asked me to put together a YouTube channel, and I just never really felt compelled to do that. I just, yeah, you know. But as time progresses and I got a little more time on my hands, I thought, well, why not? Why not put together a YouTube channel and kind of show people how the Olympic Project and how myself personally goes about conducting investigations and research and whatnot. And I don't care if you call me a Bigfoot researcher, a Bigfoot enthusiast, an investigator. Those titles don't matter to me. I'm very passionate about the Sasquatch subject in general. I know these things to exist. And down the road, my story's out there, my encounter, my original one is out there, but maybe I'll sit down and retell it. And that way, you know, why I'm so steadfast with this research, because Sasquatch has been solidified for me. It's a real living, breathing thing. I'm no longer curious about do they exist. That is, I know they do. I'm more curious about, where do they go? Do they travel in groups? Do they travel solo? What do they eat? How do they survive? How do they avoid us? And those answers, I think, we're slowly getting closer to answering. I don't have a Sasquatch in my back pocket. None of us do. But I think with the data we're collecting, it's pointing in certain directions. And the more you collect, sometimes you get more questions, but occasionally you start seeing the bigger picture, or it starts pointing in a direction that maybe you can start really hypothesizing and maybe coming to some conclusions, possibly. Again, nothing absolute. The only absolute thing I will tell you is that Sasquatch is a real thing. And though this channel is going to be mainly focusing on Sasquatch, I will also be talking about the woods, nature, hunting on occasion, survival, and you're going to get a chance to meet a lot of the people I work with that are fellow Olympic Project members and fellow researchers, investigators, and enthusiasts. And so I hope you come along with me and enjoy this journey, enjoy these trips, these investigations, and most of all, enjoy the surroundings that I'm so blessed to traverse. And I guess until next time, stay safe out there, and I look forward to sharing more stuff with you guys and bringing you out here. So cheers